Alright, so I'm gonna try to keep this as short of a video log as possible. One, because honestly what I'm gonna say, I don't want to give away too much about either movie or show that I'm reviewing right now, because you should go check this movie and this show out for yourself. Right out of the gate here, they are both great products, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each of them, check out my thoughts a little bit more about the movie over at Never Ending Radical Dude sometime in the next week or so. As I put up my review for that, I get a little bit more in depth. But let's start right off with a little Star Trek Beyond. This was a very enjoyable viewing experience for me. Now, I've enjoyed the rebooted Trek films from J.J. Abrams fine. I enjoyed the first one quite a bit. I thought, yeah, this is kind of a cool direction to take this franchise, and I like the idea of a parallel timeline taking place, so that way you can still pay homage to what came before in the original series, but at the same time have these new actors inhabit these roles in their own way. I even enjoyed Into Darkness quite a bit. The first 2/3 of the movie definitely enjoyed. When it started paying a little bit too much homage to a certain film in that movie, it did kind of lose me a little bit. It got a little bit like, okay, you're yelling out Khan because they yelled out Khan in the other movie. I see what you're doing there. So yeah, the lip service to that film was a little heavy-handed in Into Darkness, but overall it still did its job well, I felt, as a movie. But this one, Star Trek Beyond, this feels like the first fully realized film in this new Trekverse that strikes out on its own, that tries to tell a story that isn't fully burdened with having to pay homage to what came before or try to parallel stuff that came before. This feels very much like this could have played like an episode from the original series, very much so. And I think that's kind of the appeal for everyone, not just like fans of the new Trek, because I know there are some diehard Trekkies out there that have been kind of put off by the new vision they've been trying for these new films. This one I've heard is really kind of getting everyone behind it, and that's really cool because it is a very enjoyable film. It's a very well done film. It helps that it's being made by some long-standing Trek fans, such as Justin Lin. I was listening to NPR a couple days ago, and he was talking about how watching the original series with his siblings and his family when they first came to America was kind of their pastime for several Saturday nights. It's written by a longtime Trek fan, Simon Pegg, and he's, you can tell this is definitely a project he poured a lot of his writer's sensibilities into. Everyone gets a chance to shine in this, very much so. The first two movies, they did feel very much like a Jim Kirk starring vehicle, or a Jim and Spock starring vehicle. In this movie, I feel everyone really gets an even piece of the action to handle. Sure, of course, Jim Kirk's there, and Chris Pine seems to have settled fully into this role very well. Like, he's to the point now, he's got bravado about him, he's got machismo and charisma, but it's really reined in. You can tell that the character has matured, and that being in deep space for a couple of years now has, in a way, taken its toll on him. This Kirk is very much more soft-spoken than we've seen him in the first movie and Into Darkness. So I appreciate that about his performance in here. And the way he works off of his crewmates now, you can tell they've been in some shit together now, so he's no longer really contentious with anybody, or he's kind of settled easily into these friendships very, very well. I still love Zach Quinto as Spock. He's given a very cool subplot that does pay homage to Leonard Nimoy and his inhabiting the role, and at the very end there is this kind of I got choked up a little bit, this kind of callback to the original cast of Star Trek that really worked, but at the same time it didn't feel thrown in there, it didn't feel excessive at any point. And actually his journey and how it relates to what happened to Leonard Nimoy's Spock very much is a fully realized story arc that I enjoyed seeing him take on in here. I loved his interactions with McCoy. He's paired up with him for a majority of the film, and Karl Urban and Quinto work really well off of each other. They have a great kind of comedic banter together, but when they have to get serious and emotional about stuff, they're able to really tap into that strained friendship very well. Anton Yelchin as Chekhov, it seems very appropriate since this is going to be one of the last films we see him in. Chekhov is given quite a bit to do in this. I'd say he has a lot more dialogue and action to handle in this movie than he has in the previous 2 installments. And that's great, because for a good part of the movie, it's just him and Kirk handling some action sequences, handling some back and forths. I like that they kind of set up Chekhov as kind of this ladies' man. Whenever you see him kind of in a social setting in this movie, he's always got some human or alien woman on his arm, kind of sweet talking them, and I'm like, yeah, you go for it, you little Russian go-getter, you. It seems very serendipitous that for one of his last roles, Anton Yelchin gets something really meaty as an actor to chew on. Good on you, and they do have a dedication to both him and Leonard Nimoy in the end. I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't have the emotional impact of a "see you again" for Paul thing, but you know, it still lands, and you really enjoy every moment he's on screen there, and have a little pang of regret that, you know, you're not gonna see him again. The big hoopla about Sulu, you know what? It's handled very well in this movie. It's a simple scene. It's brief, and you see it from Kirk's perspective, and you know what? Thematically, it ties in a lot with what Kirk's going through as well, because he sees what Sulu has in his life in terms of family and relationships, and you can tell there's a little bit of bittersweetness there with Kirk being like, I wish I had that. So it's played very well. It's not over the top or anything like that. It's a fine addition, in my opinion. Good on them, you know. In this day and age, let alone Star Trek's day and age, to be all around accepting and inclusive, I feel is a great attribute for this franchise, so good on you. Scotty is as funny as ever, and actually gets to play a little bit more of a mentor figure to this new character. I believe her name is Jalea, or something like that. It was Gazelle from the Kingsman, made up in her badass alien outfit. I liked her new style here. I liked her character quite a bit. Thorough badass through and through, but at the same time is able to demonstrate some vulnerabilities when she has to explain, you know, what's happened to her or happened to her people. And yeah, her and Scotty's dynamic works very well in this. I really like the villain in this. Idris Elba is really a good, compelling villain. And instead of, you know, being like, well, I knew the second I saw Benedict Cumberbatch in Into Darkness who he really was. I felt Eric Bana, while he was a cool actor to have in that movie, Nero never really resonated with me as a huge threat. Idris Elba as Krall, though, really gives the crew a run for their money. I mean, mild spoilers, he destroys the Enterprise, but if you watch the trailers, you know that's going to happen. The reveal about Krall in this movie, I kind of got the gist of where it was going when I first started seeing what they were doing with his makeup as the movie progresses. I'm not going to give up too much about that, just that as the character was going through their own journey, and as you were seeing the details with regards to his prosthetics and with regards to just the character design, about halfway through the movie, I'm kind of like, I think I know where this is going. And even though I could see that coming a little bit, I was still enjoying that character arc, because Idris Elba is just awesome. And even through those heavy prosthetics, he is terrifying as hell. A brand new original villain that actually has a lot of gravitas and resonance to his arrival. Mild spoilers here, I gotta love that ultimately the day is saved by Beastie Boys. That's all I'm going to say about that. Just check out Star Trek Beyond. It was a fun ride. The action is very well paced, very tight, really, really solid. And I feel that is just because it's all anchored in these characters that we now have wholeheartedly invested in, and I want to see more. I want to see what comes next now for them. Now, my day, I went from sci-fi to supernatural because as soon as I got home, I was thinking, you know what, I don't want to get to reviewing Star Trek Beyond right away. Let's watch some TV. So I turned on Netflix and saw this show called Stranger Things on there. And I know this has been on for about a week, but I was able to burn through all 8 episodes of it. And I really, really like this show. This is an awesome mashup of a bunch of things that really grab my attention and keep me anchored into a story. It's got a lot of Spielbergian qualities going on for it. I mean, yeah, the main focus is a group of kids. Really awesome characters too, aside from just being fun kids. They're awesome, like their friendships are really worth investing this brief amount of time. They're really good actors too. Usually a child actor, sometimes if I have too much of it, I can get annoyed by a child actor, or I can kind of be like, well, they're not exactly the right fit. Like, if I'd had more of that kid who was in Iron Man 3 or Jurassic World, if he had a whole movie dedicated to just his journey, I probably couldn't stand that kid. But these kids are balanced not just by their supporting cast really well, who are the adults, but with their own dynamics as friends and compatriots, as it were. It's a nice combination of Spielberg stuff, of The Goonies, definitely, of some John Carpenter-ish, like definitely in the style and music in this show. I feel there's a heavy Carpenter influence, and a little bit of other stuff too, a little bit of Silent Hill thrown in there, some Twilight Zone stuff. It all really was just hitting all the right buttons for me in this series. A lot of fun actors. The girl they have playing, if you've seen the trailer, this little telekinetic girl named Eleven, or Elle, she is really good in this. Her performance can go from really heartbreaking to scary as hell. Like when she has to give a performance, when she has to like cry and be utterly emotionally devastated by what's happening to her, this little actress sells it. But then when she has to turn it on a dime and then give you like the "you're gonna die" stare, oh my god. All these kids I feel have a good future in acting, but I feel she's gonna go leaps and bounds just based off of this. Like, I hope she gets wrangled into other projects because of her involvement with this. I enjoyed all the characters in it. I enjoyed Winona Ryder in this movie. And really, her character as this mom who loses her kid, you know, she does a lot of crying, I'm gonna be honest. She does a lot of crying in it. She does a lot of nervous breakdown stuff in this. But she sells me on this. She sells me on this character who has lost her child and is just emotionally crippled by it. The guy who plays the sheriff or the chief, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he's been in a bunch of stuff that I've seen that I've really enjoyed. He's gonna be in Suicide Squad. I really liked his character arc too. Out of the children actors, I liked Elle's performance and I liked Dustin's. Out of the adults, it was definitely this dude playing the sheriff, playing Hopper. You kind of get a sense of what his story is as time goes on, and this show does a great job of utilizing flashbacks, because if you were just going into this series and just finding out these relationships or finding out this past history with these characters through dialogue alone, I don't feel it would have the same emotional resonance. But because of the fact that you see him interacting with his daughter who passed away, or you see Winona Ryder interacting with her son before he was taken, a lot of that stuff really keeps you anchored in the narrative, keeps you invested in this hope against hope that they're gonna find this kid. But again, there are a lot of awesome subplots too that really do fall into the tropes of some supernatural horror stock out there, but they do it really well. It's like they take all the best tropes from those types of movies and twist them in a way that really you're not expecting. There is kind of a stereotypical teenage plot where one of the kids' older sister is involved with this dude who's kind of a douchebag, but at the same time he has likable qualities about him, and you could see how she could fall in love with a guy like this, or at least be dating a guy like this. But then she also gets involved with, or not involved, but she gets caught up with the story with the missing kid, because the kid's older brother, who's kind of ostracized, a little bit of an outsider, likes to take photographs and stuff and watch people from afar. She kind of starts to pal around with him a little bit, and then you could kind of see her getting involved with him. But then the way they were taking it in a way that I thought I was anticipating, like, oh, those two will get together. No, not so much. Like, they take that cliche of, like, well, the kind of asshole boyfriend's gonna get it in the end, and she's gonna pal around with the new guy. No, they actually, they do something, they go where you weren't expecting with that. I really don't want to give away too much about it, because if you haven't seen it yet, you really should. It's a really enjoyable series. Like, when I started the episode, I had every intention of just watching episode 1 and then being like, alright, now I'll film my Star Trek Beyond review. But as the episode was wrapping up, I'm like, I just gotta know what the hell's happening. I gotta know what's going on next. What the hell is going on? How is this thing pulling people into this world? Matthew Modine, what the hell are you doing there? You look terrifying in your bright white wig. Man, I shouldn't do these reviews this late at night, because I'm just like blah 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 blah. But regardless, these are both products you should check out. Go spend your money at the theater to watch Star Trek Beyond. It is well worth the ticket price. I didn't see it in 3D, but just the 2D screening alone, the images were popping. I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit. It's on the best of. I'm not quite sure where yet, but the fact that I'm still psyched about this movie several hours later, I think speaks to its quality. But then definitely check out Stranger Things. It is such a good series. These kids are really great. I want to see more of these actors. I hope it comes back. It kind of leaves it open for a sequel. Just fun, and you can't turn away from it once you start. But that was fine by me. I was having the time of my life. I was watching all the way up to 3 Geeks tonight, and the last episode ended just as we started 3 Geeks. So I was kind of caught up in the hype of that, and hopefully some of my energy came through in the other video. Tomorrow night, I'm gonna go see The Killing Joke at the Fathom events. I've been hearing interesting stuff about how that went over at Comic-Con, so we'll see. This coming weekend, I'll be at Wizard World with the 3 Geeks crew. Swing by, check us out. Wizard World Columbus. I'll have more up later this week, hopefully. Peace.